This is a new video for you on non-economic factors that influence economic growth and economic development. The first of these non-economic factors is governance. Corrupt governments tend to hold back development. This is because scarce resources are misused or misdirected. In some countries, poor governance means that there's not the basic law and order needed to enforce private property rights. So society just descends into a lawless anarchy, a complete mess, anything goes society. War is another non-economic factor that can affect a country's economic development prospects. According to the resource curse hypothesis, countries that are blessed with valuable raw materials are often targeted by hostile foreign powers in an attempt to gain access to those resources that a hostile power wants to seize for their own economic benefit. Wars cause misery, death, they destroy labour as a factor of production. Wars also destroy homes, factories and other aspects of infrastructure that society needs to create high quality standards of living. War cuts the productive capacity of an economy. Wars create economic regression. So you could show this on a production possibility frontier. Remember that a PPF is a diagram that shows all the possible maximum output combinations of two goods that can be produced when all of society's factors of production are fully utilised. What wars do is that they damage both the quality and the quantity of a nation's factors of production. As a result of that, the PPF will shift inwards from PPF1 to PPF2. And if the productive capacity of an economy shrinks, that will also reduce material living standards and hence economic development. This is because if an economy can produce fewer goods and services, there'll be fewer goods and services for us all to consume. According to some people, a country's geography can affect its economic growth and economic development prospects. So, for example, some geographers claim that landlocked countries struggle to achieve growth and development because they're landlocked, and landlocked countries find it harder to engage in foreign trade because of transport costs being higher. And without foreign trade, you lose all of the benefits of specialising along the lines of comparative advantage. I'm not too sure about that myself, to be honest. If you look at a country like Switzerland, it's definitely landlocked, as you can see from the map there, but it's certainly done pretty well in overcoming that as a problem. It's one of the richest countries on the planet with a very high quality of life. The climate and the quality of a country's environment can definitely affect the quality of life. Some places are just less hospitable to live in, so a good example might be northern Finland. You have to be really tough to cope with life up there. Snow's on the ground for 7 months of the year, and in the winter time it can get as cold as -30 fairly often. During the long winters, this is about as light as it gets. On the other hand, in Greece, the sun's out, it's warm, the growing season is very long, which increases the productivity of land. So it just seems to me that Greece has a natural advantage in terms of the quality of life compared to poor old Finland. Another non-economic factor that can affect economic development is culture. Culture is a difficult term to pin down, but essentially it means what's acceptable and what's not within a particular society. So unwritten standards of behaviour that people are expected to abide by. And those kind of unwritten rules, those social norms, sort of codify acceptable conduct. And this can have big impacts on the quality of life within a country. Gender equality is an important aspect of economic development, but do all cultures empower women? Meet Sanna Marin. She became Prime Minister of Finland at the age of 34. Finnish culture is, and Scandinavian culture in general, is very good at promoting female empowerment. Cultural norms can also affect our lifestyles and our patterns of consumption. The HDI considers life expectancy within its assessment of economic development. In the UK, our culture is one that sort of celebrates fast food. It's normal to eat fast food. So when the COVID-19 lockdown came into force, there was a lot of unhappy Brits. And as soon as the lockdown was ended, everybody flocked off to KFC and there were queues miles long. This despite the fact that at this time most people knew that being overweight actually increased your susceptibility of dying from COVID-19. So life expectancy in Britain is actually falling, and it was falling even before COVID-19. And according to the New York Times, this is partially down to our culture, our poor lifestyles. Cultures aren't set in stone. Values can change over time. So for example, in the 1950s, what it meant to be a man was completely different to what it means to be a man in 2020. Also, relationships between men and women in terms of expectations have also changed. So, have these cultural changes improved the quality of life in Britain, or have they detracted from it? I'll leave it up to you to decide on that one. Culture can also affect the values that you grow up with, and some of those values can have impacts for the economy, in terms of things like perseverance affecting productivity. So I like this quote from Niki Lauda. So he's another one of these sort of toxic men that was born in the 1950s. And according to him, from success you learn absolutely nothing. From failure and setbacks, conclusions can be drawn. That goes for your private life as well as your career. So this type of guy, I would say, would be more likely to create viable business and employment opportunities for other people rather than somebody like Owen Jones. So cultural attitudes, they're often formed by your experience. In Britain, obviously, we've got the class system, and people's values, they can often come from the school that you attended. Attitudes towards hard work, integrity, and honesty have an obvious impact on a country's quality of life. So again, I like this quote from Bob Marley. The greatness of a man is not how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. So for me, talking from the UK in 2020, that certainly doesn't describe the culture that I can observe around me, which I might characterise as dishonest, lacking in integrity, the kind of cheat, steal, win at all cost culture that Britain seems to have adopted since the late 1980s. Religion is another example of a non-economic factor that can affect the quality of life. So some people, some commentators believe that the Judeo-Christian culture has had a positive impact on the West in terms of its ability to create economic growth and development. According to the likes of Ben Shapiro and Douglas Carswell, the Industrial Revolution wouldn't have happened in Britain had it not been for Judeo-Christian values. One of the key features of free market capitalism is specialization and trade. In a free market system, all exchange is voluntary. So if one party in the trade stops trusting the other, the trade will cease. And this is where the Golden Rule comes in. The Golden Rule originating from the Gospel of Matthew, which briefly states as follows: in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. This rule of conduct is a summary of the Christian's duty to his neighbour and states a fundamental ethical principle. In its negative form, do not do to others what you would not like done to yourselves. The Golden Rule facilitates trade and commerce because it facilitates trust. And that brings us to the end of another economics video. This topic really has been about anthropology, which is the study of people and societies. And it's got nothing to do with this shop here that sells overpriced tap to people who've got more money than sense. Just a joke, by the way.